I recently started actively learning Russian vocabulary again. I need it for an interesting project I'm working on, which I hope to share in a couple of weeks. And it reminded me of how I was learning vocabulary when I had just started learning Russian. So let me tell you what I did these recent months. I downloaded a word list of the 5,000 most common Russian words and started working through them. Now, you might think, Ari, aren't you already fluent in Russian? Well, yes, but here's the thing. Even after years of speaking Russian, I still think it's good to occasionally review basic vocabulary. After all, those are the exact words that are used most often. And learning new words, because that really never stops, to be honest. And here's how I'm doing this. I installed Anki on my phone. It's the flashcard app that uses spaced repetition. And here's the key part. I'm only spending about 3 to 5 minutes a day on it. That's it. When I'm sitting on my couch, waiting for food to cook, or just having a quick coffee break, I just pull out my phone and just do a few repetitions. And because of the spaced repetition, it's much better to spend just 5 minutes a day versus like a whole hour just once a week. Now, there's lots of decks available, but I highly recommend you pick a deck that includes audio. This is non-negotiable because Russian pronunciation can be very tricky, and hearing the word while you learn it helps wire the correct pronunciation into your brain from the start. It also helps you understand where the stresses should be. And to be honest, you're already reviewing flashcards, so having the audio there doesn't cause any extra time or effort, but it will make a big difference in your pronunciation skills. And by the way, if you want to supercharge your Russian vocabulary, download my free 750 Russian English cognate list in the link below. I cannot guarantee it'll be online free forever, so I recommend you download it today. So why specifically vocabulary? Well, let me give you a recent example. I was in the south of France 2 weeks ago, and my French is super basic. But just knowing simple words like je veux, I want, s'il vous plaît, please, merci beaucoup, thank you, and au revoir, goodbye, made a big difference in my own experience. Because it just showed the locals that I respected their culture enough to at least try speaking their language. And the same principle applies to the Russian language, but even better because there's fewer people learning Russian than French, for example. Think about it. Even if you don't know any grammar, but you know, let's say 500 to 1,000 basic Russian words and expressions, you can already get around pretty well. You can point at things and say "это," or ask "сколько," or "я хочу." It's not perfect Russian, but it works, and natives will appreciate it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you should completely ignore Russian grammar. Actually, incorporating some basic grammar early on can make a big difference in how fluent you'll sound. That's exactly why in my course, Russian Conversations Unlocked, I designed it to teach both grammar and vocabulary together right from the start. Because it's all about building that foundation for natural speaking ability. So let's talk about making this vocabulary learning process work for you. First, choose a manageable number of words to learn each day. I'd say start with like 5 new words and 20 to 50 repetitions of older words. And don't worry about finishing the whole set each day. It's more about building the habit. And make sure you're learning common words. So you focus on words that Russians actually use every day in their conversations. There's no point in learning random words that you'll rarely use. While a word like benzopila might sound funny, it's not a word I use on a daily basis. And one last thing I've noticed that really helps, do not set specific goals or anything. Just try to get into the habit of opening the app a couple times a day and doing some repetitions. Focus on consistency first, and volume can always come later. Now, if you haven't downloaded that sheet with 750 Russian English cognates, check the link in the description.